Next session is finding new voices in Indian publishing and the importance of publishers standing by debut authors. In this session, we welcome Mautusi Mukherjee, Rimina Mohapatra, Sayantan Ghosh and Manu Das, personalities from the publishing world. We have with us Mautusi Mukherjee. Please come.
Thank you. I'll keep the introduction really short. See it as a time filler while we find Manu. The search for Manu. Yes, there he is. So when we thought of this topic, we obviously considered what are some functions and certain roles that publishers play. And there are many in the literary landscape of a country like India, which is multilingual and where there is a plethora of voices that can be published and brought to the readers. And an important role that publishing has played, obviously, is to bring new, fresh voices that tell new kinds of stories, whether it is a fictional story or a story in non-fiction form, and try and open up new white spaces in publishing by bringing in new voices that go on then to have a very accomplished literary career. So that is the backdrop in which we conceived this particular topic, and I'm going to stop there and let Manu and the panelists go ahead and exchange their views. But thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. We have three young and energetic publishing professionals from Penguin, Simon Schuster, and Routledge, India. Welcome them to this discussion. And the topic we have kept here is what is their plan for the debut writers in their respective publishing houses, and what is their vision, and in the context of Odia writers, because I belong to Odisha, and I feel that Odisha is the less represented in a Indian publishing scene, and do they have any such plan in future? And I hope let us start it with first Penguin.
Do we have any plans to focus particularly on Odia writers? Yes, of course. I mean, all editors like to read a good debut, I think. When the writing excites us, I don't think we look at the region from where the debut writer is necessarily coming from, and I don't think we sift and select on the basis of that. But I think all good writers just kind of hit you when you basically need to read like a chapter or maybe 2 chapters, or if it's a novel, you want to read a little bit more into it. And if the writing hits you, then you want to champion it, and you want to fight the fight for it, and you want to stand by the debut writer. So absolutely, whether the writer comes from Odisha or from Maharashtra or from Telangana or Kashmir, Ladakh, parts of the Northeast, if the story is compelling and the writing matters to me, then I do kind of sometimes fight the fight, a very long fight sometimes, but it's good to put your back behind it. And Odisha has a long legacy of people who read. It's a reading community. So I'm very excited about the kind of work that will come out of Odisha. And if it comes my way, then I'm very happy to read more and more.
Thank you, Mautusi. Now, my question is to Sayantan. What are the things that they are looking for from the writers, debut writers, to make it a really success, a good one, a good book, I mean to say?
Firstly, good morning and thank you all for being here. Uh, the same things as I would expect from any author. Of course, when somebody's starting out and writing their first book, they need a little more hand-holding than an experienced author. They wouldn't probably know the tropes of how a book gets, edited, published. The whole process is slightly lengthy from the time we sign on an author, as both of them would probably agree. It takes at least a year for the book to ultimately reach the market, sometimes even longer. So in case of a debut author, they may not be well aware of how that process takes place. So that's all. Otherwise, like Motoshi said, we are always looking out for a compelling story, a writer who is honest with the kind of story they are telling. We are always on the lookout, like you rightly pointed out, if we have plans for writers from Odisha, and as I won't repeat what she said, but like we are always on the lookout for stories which are authentic, coming out from writers who belong to a specific, whether it can be a specific region, it can be a specific, I don't know, it can be religion, it can be anything, but that authenticity of voice is what we are always looking out for. So it's the same thing that we are looking at when it comes to whether an experienced author or whether it's a debut author. In case of a debut author, they might just need a little more support in terms of not only editorially, but even after the book is published, because they don't know how book marketing works, they don't know how a book needs to reach the final reader. They have to be taken to bookstores and introduced to probably bookshops and bookshop owners for them to know the author, which always helps. So these are the kind of things that we have to additionally cushion them with. Otherwise, it's more or less the same thing that we are looking out for in terms of the text that we are reading.
Fine. My next question to you, Shantanu, that you told that you are looking for the authentic topic or authentic subjects. So far, these writers, debut writers are concerned. Could you just explain better so that what do you mean by saying authentic?
What I mean is essentially, if say for instance, if I try to write a story that's based in Bhubaneswar, or about a boy, I think we were discussing yesterday, last night, and somebody mentioned about a book called Katak Boy, and I was keenly listening to it, and it's about, and he said that it's about a boy growing up in Katak, but he's also telling the story of the history of Odisha through the eyes of that boy. Now, I grew up in Calcutta. If I try to write that story, even if I've done all my research, I may not bring in the kind of authenticity that a boy who actually grew up in Katak can. Despite, I can have all the resources in my at my disposal, but I still may not bring in that authenticity. So I'm always on I'm not saying that it's not possible. There are umpteen examples of writers who have, one of my favorite books in Bangla is a book called Chander Pahar by Bibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay. He wrote Chander Pahar, which is set in a forest in Africa, and he had never stepped out of Bengal. So it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it always helps when somebody who represents a certain community to bring that voice out in the world. That's what I meant by authenticity.
Well, Rimina, you are associated with a Routledge. I think they go for more on books on research and scholarly books, if I am not wrong. So could you explain that how the general authors of Odisha could be benefited by your publishing house?
Thank you, and again, thanks everybody for being here today. Very good question, Manu, but I would reframe this question a little bit.
Please, do.
Because I think the questions that you've been previously asking as well, I mean, since theme is around debut authors, but you're also asking about regionality. So there is the voice of a new author, and there is this regional aspect that you're bringing as well. I think either of those aspects, as my colleagues here have said, it doesn't directly come into consideration or assessments when we are looking at proposals. What it will do, of course, is that when there is a new idea, a new proposal from a person who is new in the field or has not published before, the same kind of support and the same kind of guidance might be there as to how to develop that project, how to develop that work. But I think more or less it's really about the hesitation and the fear and the anxiety is sometimes regional and debut authors, intersectionality there, feel when writing something. So when you are saying a generalist author, what you really mean is that somebody who's probably not doing research per se, but still could write something which is which can be published by Routledge. Now that absolutely holds true. Often you will have a segment called non-fiction, which trade publishers like Penguin and Simon Schuster publish. But Routledge will have that one, you know, there is a fine line there where you can have books on, politics or economy or history, absolutely. But the tenor of it will be slightly different in the sense that there will be more research oriented, in the sense that there will be notes, there will be references, there will be a greater delving into the literature review, there will be a set of peer reviews that will come before it. So it does require a bit of training into the academic space in order for you to publish something like that. But having said that, it's not something that's not done. I think we have a fair number of authors who publish with us, both in books and journals. So I think the field is wide open, and it is really for everyone to take that lead. Last evening, I think there were some conversations. We had some heated debates last night for the benefit of the audience here, and it was pretty, I think the decibels were so high that we were asked to shut down a little bit. But the question remained, the question was, are you publishing enough? Are you publishing enough Indian authors? Are you publishing enough Indian authors writing in English? And I think Millie here and others, and we agree in that. How many of us are unafraid to write fearlessly in the subjects we want, in the of the ideas we want to, in the language we want to, and there is that obviously that distance in terms of English language and other languages. So I think the field is wide open. It is for us to, I think, take up those and get and create an allyship, create here a network of sorts where publishers enable and the authors are able to bring their ideas into fruition. I think that's really it.
Thank you, Ravina. In all these years, being an Odia author also, I have marked one thing that in translations specifically, that many of our old peoples are being translated again and again, one particular text or one novel, 10 times, 5 times they are being translated. Whereas the debut authors, those who write in a regional language, in Odia, they are being ignored. Because nobody wants to take the risk of translating the young and debut authors, even if they are good. So, do you encourage such young writers translations also? This question is to all of three of you, especially to Shainton as well as Penguin.
Thank you for the question, Manuda. Of course, I mean, when you say that established authors or novels which are already a part of a reader's psyche or is already popular among a certain readership, that gets translated again and again, we see that happening. It is because it's already something that readers are aware of, but that doesn't mean that a new author who's writing in a certain language, whether it's Oriya or Assamese or anywhere else, because I have worked with translations of that, so maybe not an Oriya author, but from other regions where a new author's voice has been translated. It's difficult for us editors, and it's one of the shortcomings, I'd say, of our industry, that we are all sitting cocoon in Delhi, and it's very difficult for us to keep a track of what's going on in all over the country. We try our best, but it's still very hard. So it's when a new voice comes to us and it strikes us, we tend to take that up. It's not like we don't. Yes, some regions probably need more focus than some others. Like, I know a lot of writing from Bengal gets translated, a lot of Marathi literature gets translated. Of course, from down south, a lot of literature gets translated, but there are neglected parts as well. But we are always on the lookout, like Motushi also was saying earlier. A new author's voice which is fresh, which has something new to tell, we are always happy to look at a translation. But that translation, so how the submission process works for anyone who wouldn't know is that we'll need at least a couple of chapters of the book, whatever book that is, and a detailed synopsis of the book to make some sense of it. So even if it's the translated work of a new author, if we have the sample chapters to take a look at, and if it strikes a chord with an editor, I'm sure they're going to take it up.
I think Shantanu has said what he had to say. I think Manu is trying to provoke us into saying we don't want to, but we honestly really are on the same team. In that I think all editors are really on they want to stand by their authors, and they want to bring interesting stuff to the table. They want to bring stuff that people want to read and buy in a bookstore. And they want to be diverse and representative. So all the more, I think, as a Bengali, I actually look out more for stuff from outside of Bengal, because I don't want anyone to turn around and say, oh, you're only being the Bengali stuff. So I think we're actively looking for contemporary voices all the time. And in fact, some of the stuff that's been published recently in translation has a lot of contemporary voices that have come up, and a lot of new authors have been discovered in translation in the last 3 or 4 years, I think, and that is perhaps because there has been interest from publishers. People have taken it up, Penguin, Simon, so I think everybody is interested in looking for new voices. So we're definitely on the same team there.
Do you want to say anything on this? Okay. I do not have a next question. I have now questions for the audience. If they are interested,
we'd love to hear.
They can. Yes, we would like to hear more from the audience.
So my question is this. There is interest from the editors and the publishers to discover new voices. My question is, what is being done not only to respond to literary taste, but to make taste? Because so much of what the reading public knows or thinks of as interesting is defined by what is already available or presented to them as interesting or fresh or new. So to what extent and what role do publishers play in making taste and making space for new kinds of writing or new kinds of voices that perhaps have not been considered interesting or worthwhile in the past? What do you do to make space for the new?
I don't have a great answer for that, but I was thinking that there's been sort of this spate of Japanese fiction in translation recently that everybody seems to be reading, Korean fiction in translation. And we had a conversation in the office one day, very long conversation, where we were all swapping ideas about how come everybody's reading Japanese and Korean fiction in translation, and when did this happen and who made it happen? And we're still kind of trying to trace it back to whether at some point publishers kind of just found these great translations and decided to, have this, make it into a trend or whatever. I think it basically, there's always been Japanese fiction in translation, right? It's been around for so long. So maybe there has been a concerted effort made by some publishers. I don't know, I'm throwing ideas out here, in perhaps championing it because of reader response to those translations. So I think publishers do want to champion, but they're also looking at what people are reading and consuming rather, not just reading, because I think the formats of consuming content has changed so much and they all overlap. So what we are watching, what we are eating, and what we are reading kind of, I feel like, overlap in parts. So that's been this interesting phenomenon that I've observed, where certainly I think publishers have pushed through this wave of fiction from Asia Pacific to kind of in translation and presented them to readers.
I agree. I second what Motishi said. Just to add to it, there's not much to add, unfortunately, but we have a much smaller list at Simon & Schuster India that as compared to Penguin or Routledge. We have some opportunity, at least I try to, because of the smallness of the list, there is some opportunity to spend a little longer with each title. So ideally what we should be doing, and I try my best, I'm not saying I always succeed, is to take a chance on a daring voice in a mix of voices that I know will, because ultimately we also are chasing a deadline, we are constantly being told to chase a certain number. It's all there like any other business. But between that, we try to take a chance on, say, a daring voice, try to reach out to, the first challenge, and I'm sure you will probably have faced the same thing. The challenge we face is our own sales teams, because we have to first convince them that why are we publishing this particular book, right? Because they want something that's secure. So when we are taking a chance on whether it's a new voice, whether it's a daring voice, whether it's something, or it's something that nobody has come across before in the Indian context. So we have to first convince them. That's the first hurdle. If that happens, then we try to take that same message to bookstores, same message to the distributors, and try and ensure that the support that the book needs to at least stay visible for a longer while. It's ultimately up to the reader to pick it up or not. Of course, there is social media push these days. Our publicity teams are constantly making these fun reels, etc., to reach out to the younger readers. But our push is to ensure that the book is visible at whether it's an airport or a bookstore for a little longer than it otherwise would. And if that ensures a steady sale, then it automatically sustains. Thank you for the question.
Manu, I have a question here. To the panel, probably I'm the poet came from far away from the other side of the world, though I write in Bengali. The recent Nobel Prize went to Korean writer, and there is a lot of question, why Korean writer? Why not Bengali, why not other Indian writer? And as you said, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese writers are very well known all over the world. And after that question came up, I actually went to Poet's House in New York City, where 80,000 poetry books are available. And there is a section for anthology. The Korean section is this thick, Chinese section is this thick, and Japanese section is this thick. Whereas the Indian section is this. Only 11 books there. And luckily, one of them I translated from Bengali. That's one Bengali, no Odia book. My question is to you, as I know that Penguin Publishing from here, none of this book goes out of the world, only for India. We don't know these authors. But those Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans we are talking about, those books are actually published all over the world, not in India. Now, your marketing does not reach up to the other part of the world. Do you have any plan to do that? Thank you.
This is a Penguin question, right?
It is a Penguin question.
It is a Penguin question. It is rather difficult for a single marketer or a publicist sitting in Delhi to have that kind of access that you're talking about, which is like a sort of a global outreach access for their books. Or if that's what you're asking if the books that are published here, are they being marketed all over the world? I think it's rather difficult because it's a small team of marketing people who are honestly doing their best, really. And then to expect them to sort of have that, to have these books available across different parts of Europe and the Africa and the Americas and Australia, it is very difficult. Social media helps to a great extent, and I think I believe that publicists in India use social media as best as they can to make their books available. And this is true for people in Penguin and all of the other publishing houses. I think the tools that they are given, they use those tools and they try to do the best that they can. If you're talking about how much more visible Japanese books are or Korean books are, I think that's more about where they are being published and who is publishing them. So if the Japanese book is being published in the UK and has been published by a UK-based publisher or a US-based publisher, then the outreach is obviously different because their markets are different and their accessibility to markets are different. If the book has been published, say it's a small book that's been published in Kerala, for instance, by a Kerala-based publisher, it would be hard for that book to be made accessible all over the world. But I believe that everybody's kind of doing their best really here.
Follow-up questions. Unless we market our writers all over the world, they are not going to be known. So obviously, Odia International Art and Literacy Festival is great. But those publishers have to come up to market our writers all over the world. Otherwise, it's going to stay in here. It's not going to be international the way we are expecting to be.
In our defense, all our books are available globally. Every book, every journal article actually is available globally because these are obviously not the kind of scale and volume that trade publishers do. With any fiction or non-fiction, what is the bare minimum is probably what, 5,000 copies or whatever it is. But for academic publishers, it's much less, right? But so we do 8,000 books a year now, let's say. Every book is available everywhere. And as they mentioned, I think one of the most important thing is to actually make those books discoverable online. So if the books are available, people at least know about them, they can cite them, they can find ways to procure them, and similarly with journal articles. I also wanted to take a moment to just answer the other question about how we are making space for new voices and new authors. Within academic research, I think it is done in quite a few ways. One is, of course, the editorial will drive it very directly in terms of commissioning editors actually going out, seeking out the unrepresented areas, which is becoming difficult more and more, especially after COVID and everything. I think travels have become quite tough for a lot of editors, but traditionally that's been the way that you actually seek out, actually by visiting or seeking out through email or contact or social media, just to have a nose in the ground to see what are the kinds of writing that's happening in different parts, actually making those visits to the university and seeing what they do. So that's led from the editorial side of things. There's also the marketing side of things where, for example, there are, specialized marketing teams who are actually now, creating these guidelines and submission portals and resource FAQs and questions as to how to submit to a journal, how to write for a book. Do you want to publish? Do you want to come over? What are the basic things you do? They will give things like templates for cover letters, how to approach a publisher, what are the subjects, what areas do you work in, and there will be journal suggester which will tell you which article may fit in which journal, and various kinds of, so tech related and marketing related, and there could also be things like, leads coming in from sales colleagues who are making those visits, and you figure out, okay, there's some interesting work happening somewhere, and you try to, so as much as you can do in these circumstances, in these sort of, everybody's got a sort of a target, I'm sure, and books need to keep publishing year after year, month after month, but yeah, that's the way some of that new work is happening.
Can I just...
Thank you very much, Shayantan, Motushi and Erimina for being here, and it is really amazing to listening you. I have only last, before telling, I will have a suggestion that please save our debut writers from the trap of these vanity publishers because you people are not taking their, giving them space. As a result, they are going, so however, to the vanity publishers. Anyhow, thank you for being here once again. Thank you.
Thank you for this exciting session on publishing.